So, as promised, here is the next installment in our mid-year reset, which is going to be going through how to figure out what you want to do with your life. Which is definitely a lofty task, but we're going to try our best to figure out what it is I want to do with the rest of my life in this video. So yeah, I'm a bit afraid about this. In case you don't know, I'm in my third year, soon to be fourth year of my PhD, so soon to be final year. And that means that it's time to start thinking about what I want to do after my PhD and what I want to be doing really for the future, which is pretty scary. So we're going to be going through a couple of different exercises in this video. I will be taking you along with my answers. So the first one that we're going to go through is values. I think in my last video I said purpose, vision, and values, and they're the three things that we're going to go through today. And in terms of the ordering of those, I don't really know which one comes first or which one comes second, but in a way I think it's nice to have in your mind what are the things that you value when you're going through the next exercise. So there's this website called Personal Value with the U and then .es. So it's personal values, but the dot is before the es. And on that website, I was sort of very dubious about how this would work, because you basically choose the values that you value yourself, and then you choose a long list of them, and then it sort of puts them against each other and you narrow it down, and eventually you end up with your top 5 values. I've already done this exercise, so I won't be doing that today, but I do recommend checking it out. It's definitely worthwhile to do, and I do feel like after doing it, you can definitely just have a clearer sense of when you're making choices in your life and in your days, which we are a product of the things we do every day. You can start to see how you're acting in your values or how you're acting against your values. And if you're acting against your values, if you're not acting within your values, that is usually a sign that we are not going to be very happy in the long run. So it's important that it is something that we think about regularly and think about how we can align what we're doing in our lives with what we value, because that's how we'll get the most out of our lives. So mine, in terms of order, first of all was health, second was creativity, third was curiosity, fourth was success, and fifth was pleasure. Health then is something that I definitely neglect a lot when I am feeling busy, when I do have a lot on in terms of my PhD and in terms of running the drama school, which is, in case you don't know, I do also run a business, which is a speech and drama school based in Dublin. And in that I have 9 employees that work for the company, and then I'm the director of the company. And we have around 150 students. So it is definitely a big undertaking. And then obviously I have this, brand and all of the things that go along with that as well. So when I'm busy, when I have a lot on, I definitely neglect health, and then I naturally end up unhappy, and then that makes me neglect it further, and so on and so forth. It's definitely sort of a vicious cycle in that way. So for me, it's really important to be mindful that I will be feeling happiest when I am doing things for my health, and when I'm feeling healthy, I will be most able to work, and that's important. So it's sort of that cycle and trying to promote that. In terms of creativity then, I do feel like I get that from working as a teacher. It is a very creative process because you're constantly coming up with new plans, you're working, directing performance pieces. There's a lot of reading that you need to do as part of a teacher, and I think that's quite creative in a way. You get to sort of experience creativity by going to see performances. And I think as well, from content creation, that's a big part of it as well. But not only that, but through my research, that is creative problem solving, and there's a huge amount of creativity that comes with that. Curiosity then is a value that is all about sort of learning and wanting to learn about things. And that's definitely something that I sort of always have known is something that I value. I always said that if I had all the money in the world and all the time in the world, I would just continue to do different college courses and just basically learn forever. I do think that would be something that I would be immensely satisfied if that was what I could do with the rest of my life. And then also curiosity being, I think, new things. So I love trying new food experiences. I love visiting new places, experiencing new things in general. I do really enjoy, and I think that's a big part of curiosity as well. And then I like finding out the answers to things. So that'd be like problem solving. I love true crime, you know, that kind of way. I love a good thriller. And I think all of that sort of feeds the curiosity value that I have. Success then is one that I think is a tough one to have as a value, because it's definitely something that I feel is important. It's obviously a struggle because a lot of the time you end up putting that above everything else. I think it's important that we don't let success get in the way of our other values, because we lose the happiness that could come from serving the other values if we just focus on success. And because success, I suppose, in a way isn't guaranteed, you don't want to be hinging all of your happiness on that one thing. In terms of pleasure then, I feel like that's such a vague value. One thing you might have noticed from my values, and that these might be very different to yours in a way, is that mine doesn't have anything like family or friendship or love. And for me, that all comes into pleasure in a weird way. I see spending time with my partner, or spending time with my family, or spending time with friends as a pleasurable experience. Like, that to me is the peak enjoyment, is spending good time with those people. As well as literature, like when I read and experience new literature, you know, whether that's going to see a performance, that to me is so pleasurable. Same thing for traveling or food. Those would be the things that I really, really enjoy. So for me, that's what all of the stuff that falls under pleasure is. So for example, last weekend I went to Galway and to see my dad and my stepmom who lived there, and I got to spend really good quality time with them. And we went out to new places in Ireland that I'd never been to before, and we went to a really great fish restaurant to have really amazing food. We watched a really good movie that we all really enjoyed, and I also did a lot of like self-care in terms of exercise and using their like home spa, and I read 2 books, and it was just a great time. Honestly, I think that to me was like peak pleasure, and that's something that I'm trying to prioritize now a bit more in my life, is having those experiences more, because they are really sort of rejuvenating and they are really important. I think understanding your values is really key for when you're making more life choices and when you're making choices in your days, because we can choose to try and live more along with our values and try and live, I suppose, an intentional life in that way. We can really reflect from time to time about how we're spending our time and how much of our time is doing things that serve different values and how much of our time is spent doing things that don't provide us any value. So for example, you know, scrolling mindlessly on social media or binge watching TV shows, what is that really providing us? And I'm sure there's a lot of psychology to show how it helps us cope with different things, but a lot of the time in the long run it's not providing us anything, and it's something that we should try and reduce where we can and try and replace with things we actually really do value. So I've done a little add-on to our Notion template to include our values, and as well underneath some activities that will be relevant to those values. So for example, for me it would be pleasure stuff would be traveling, visiting Galway, spending time with people, blah blah blah. And it's just so that we can, when we're doing our plans for a given day or month or week, whatever that might be, we're looking at these values and we're seeing the things that we could be doing that would provide us with that sort of long-term happiness, and we're not just focusing on one of those, we're focusing on all of those and trying to basically plan around those to make sure we have the best lives, if that makes sense. The next thing then is going to be finding a purpose, and this comes from Japanese culture. This is something called ikigai. Basically in Japan there's a few areas that are highly populated with people living to be over 100, and that comes down to having a sense of purpose and having something that is sort of keeping you going. My speech and drama teacher was 84 when she passed away, and she could have kept going. She was still teaching into her 80s and could have kept going, I think, forever had COVID not come in the way. And she, I think, was very much fueled by that purpose that she had of the speech and drama work being so important. And I completely feel that, because that's also something that I feel is important. And I know that will come out a lot in this next exercise for me. So essentially, ikigai is the intersection between the things that you like to do, the things that you're good at doing, the things that the world needs, and the things that you can earn money from. If you have something that you like doing, that you're good at doing, that you can earn a good amount of money that you can survive off from, and that's something that the world needs, that you're contributing to the world in whatever way that makes sense to you, you will be very fulfilled, and that will give you a sense of long-term happiness, a sense of long-term purpose, and that will help you live a long and happy and prosperous life. And it's obviously easier said than done. I think it's something that it'll probably take a lot more than today to figure out, but I think it's a good thing to be thinking about, and it's a good thing to keep in mind when we are trying to decide what we want to do. I think a lot of people fall into the pitfall of just wanting to do something that does make a lot of money, and it's not going to provide you that long-term fulfillment. Same way a lot of people fall into the pitfall of just wanting to do something that they really like, and a lot of the time that's not going to provide you with enough money that you can really feel fulfilled by it. If you're just doing something vocationally, which right now would be me with the speech and drama school, like I couldn't do that forever without having enough income from it that I can realistically sustain my life. These are things to think about. I think with my areas of life being so disparate, computer science and speech and drama work and content creation right now are kind of separate. There's lots of money to be made in the field of computer science. I could go and get a job for probably like 200,000 after my PhD somewhere in the United States and probably hate it, and then it wouldn't really be worth it. At the same time, I could go and work in the speech and drama school full time, and I do think there's the chance that I could eventually scale it to have enough income for myself that I can live comfortably and everything. And that could be one definite option, but I do think I'd miss all of the computer science work, and I'd feel like it was a letdown to spend so much time in education with none of it being relevant to what I do in my job. I do think that would be very disheartening for me. I don't think I could have spent 9 years going to university only to do something irrelevant to that. So that's something to think about as well. But anyways, what we're going to do is we are going to make a list of the things that we like, the things that we're good at. Think about them in terms of actions. So things you like to do, things that you're good at doing, activities or whatever that might be. And for some of these, I think when it comes to things that you're good at doing, you can just try and start by getting anything out and then try and make them a bit more general. So if you said like planning holidays, maybe you're good at planning holidays, you're probably in general good at planning. And it's to try and maybe make them a bit more vague, and that will help to fit some of these pieces together a little bit. The things that you like, I think, try and make those a bit more specific in a way, if there's a way that you can generalize some of them. So if you say you like planning your days, you could say that you maybe like planning in general. Whereas if it's something like you like traveling, then that's quite specific, and I'm not sure how we could generalize that, if that makes sense. So with these lists, we want to fill out, as I said, things you like doing, things you're good at doing, things the world needs. So again, that should be quite specific. And in terms of things that you can get paid for, again, I think we could make these sort of general, and this will help fit them together. So for example, teaching, that's quite general in a way, whereas the how you teach and in what context you teach can really depend on what the other areas fit together, if that makes sense. And digital products would be quite vague, and those could apply to many different areas, so that then when we're coming together, we can try and find a way to say, like, if you're saying that you like traveling, the world needs, I think it's going to be hard to say what the world needs in terms of traveling, but let's say the world needs sustainable traveling. I'm sure it does. And you like creating content, and you can get paid for digital products, let's say. You could create content and make a digital product around sustainable travel. there's a business idea, enjoy. I'm sure there is somebody doing that, but that's not the point. I think as well with these things, a lot of the time there are going to be people doing this, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't do it too. Usually we will have our own spin on things, and a lot of people, especially in the content creation space, get really bogged down with the fact that, oh, there's someone else doing something. So I'm going to do this exercise now, and I'm going to get back to you with the results. Okay, so now we should be sort of trying to pull some of these together. So things for me that will be pulling together would be, first of all, let's just think about things within the sort of research area, or like in general, let's say, because I do find that like a lot of the work that I do teaching speech and drama is really important. That is definitely something that could provide ikigai, except it doesn't really pay enough for me to just be able to do that full time. It just doesn't. Now it might at some point. I think it absolutely could at some point, but we're definitely still growing. And I think the other thing as well is, for me, it has the curiosity in the way that I would continue needing to learn and read to continue teaching. But I need to be able to do something that's in my research as well. So I don't think that's necessarily something that would provide me with that. So then in terms of research, so like developing recommender systems for good reasons. So that could be health, productivity, promoting hobbies, promoting creativity, promoting education. Things like that I do find important. And those would be things that I would enjoy working on in terms of future work in research for recommender systems, would be in those areas, in things that I feel benefit people. And similarly, I'd be also interested in creating content and digital products around any of those. So productivity, education, hobbies, and health. I don't think I would be doing it around health because that's just not something I have enough information on to provide people with information on, if that makes sense. But I really do enjoy health related content. Yeah, educational content, productivity content. I sort of do that a bit here, although less on the educational side, I think. But I think also, yeah, something around hobbies as well. I do really enjoy that. One thing that I think is really important is, at the moment, arts workers have a really hard time in terms of, it's a very much a gig economy, and I'd love to create a solution to that. And that's something that I feel I could earn money from, and it's definitely something the world needs, and it would probably be relating to my like sort of research in a way. I think most likely what will end up being something that does give me that sort of sense of purpose will be in that space of developing some sort of recommender system solution or applications of machine learning to one of those areas. So if I want to bring together the work I do with the speech and drama school, then that will mean probably in the educational space, or in the hobbies space, to develop some sort of solution there. And that's quite an exciting prospect. I think obviously it would be something I like doing because I do like problem solving and I do like those areas. It's something I'm good at doing because I know those areas and I know, the applications. It's something that I would be good at doing, I think. In terms of whether the world needs it, I think that's where the sticking point could be. So it would have to be something that is really needed. And I think there's a lot of things within that space that definitely are needed and don't exist yet. And I think that's quite an exciting prospect. And then in terms of earning money from it, that's also sort of a sticking point. It would have to be good enough software that it would be worth selling to someone. Yeah, basically that people buy. Another thing I think would be something in the space of like data communication, because there would be the data analytics part, and then there'd also be the communication part, which is the sort of content creation. And to do that in one of those spaces, I think could be really interesting and something that I'd really like as well. So for example, as well, like bringing data analytics into the speech and drama space or into the art space, and communicating that and working with that, if that makes sense. So I think that's definitely something that I'd like to try and move my life towards in terms of what type of work I'd like to do. I don't know if that's something that's going to happen anytime soon because, you know, I'm still finishing up my PhD and I do believe that I want to do a postdoc, and ideally I'd like to do one with my supervisor, which would mean probably working on the same work for at least another year. But I think that is definitely something that could give me a really good sense of purpose. Take the work that I've been doing in terms of research and move it into the space that I'm working in communication and drama teaching. So now that I sort of have a sense of things I value, I have a sense of things that might bring me some purpose in my life. The next thing is to try and create a vision for what our future life would look like. I mentioned that there's sort of a couple of ways of doing this. One is the sort of gravestone challenge, where you will write what you want to appear in your gravestone or your eulogy. And I definitely just don't like that. I think probably the reason I don't like it is because I don't really like the idea of people talking about me. So I think what's better for me is my ideal day, to sort of see what it would look like. Where are you going? What are you doing? What does your mornings consist of? What do your evenings consist of? And try and break it down throughout the day. So what does the morning look like? What does the work day look like? What does the evening look like? And then what does recreation time look like? So what does the weekend look like? What does the time off look like? And what are things that you'd like to have in your calendar? That's how I see things, and I guess that sort of makes sense based on what you guys see in terms of the sort of productivity and planning. It's all about like, what do your plans look like for me? Like what are you doing? What do you have in your diary? Think about what you want your parts of your day to look like, and whatever makes the most sense in terms of creating the vision for you. So some people will like a paragraph where they write what it's like for each part of the day. Some people would like pictures, some people will like doodles. Whatever makes the most sense to you in terms of creating that vision. It's a really important part of goal setting, is to know what you want your life to look like in the long run, because that means that when we're creating and setting goals, then we are trying to move towards that vision, and everything we do should be moving towards that vision, apart from the stuff that we just have to do. But like the new stuff should be moving towards that vision, what we want our vision to look like. And this can change, and like even values can change, because, you know, I'm not in the stage where I'm thinking about, you know, children or family or anything like that. So obviously my priorities and everything will change later in life, but, you know, for the next like, I don't know, 10 years, it's probably going to be not like that. It's to think about what I want life to look like before then. Do what makes the most sense for you. So sometimes for these things, it makes sense for me to start off by just writing things in a diary. So usually I do that on my iPad, and then I'll move it into my Notion so that I have somewhere to look at it. And just do whatever feels natural for you. I think it's a really important point to do that. I also want to do a quick comparison of what my life looked like when I did my previous vision, which was one of the first videos I made on this YouTube channel a couple of years ago. It's going to be interesting to compare what I wanted my life to look like 2.5 years ago compared to, is there anything that's changed? So I had hoped that, like, I guess by the end of this year that me and Jack would be engaged, which honestly I don't even really care about at all anymore, because we live together. So that to me is in a way better. I think we're living well together, so I think I can sort of cross that one off. I wanted to be finished my PhD. I will not be finished my PhD, but I'll be nearly finished, and like I'll get my PhD. Healthy and happy, like we're making progress towards that. I wanted to have a successful YouTube channel, and on it says 300,000 subscribers, and I've set a lofty goal to get to 30,000 subscribers by the end of this year. So yeah, however, I do think I have a successful YouTube channel, and I think that has to count for something. I wanted to have a livable passive income stream, and do you know what? I do. I have, you know, nearly, I'd say on average, 1,200 a month coming in passively, and that's pretty good. Like, could I live off that? No. But, you know, with everything else that I have going on, absolutely. And if I upped it a little bit, we'd definitely be able to get to the point where I have a livable passive income stream by the end of the year for sure. I wanted to be able to research independently and work anywhere, anytime. I think that's actually pretty true. I do think that's sort of how my PhD looks. And I wanted to have the freedom to travel. And I think I have all of that. That's pretty great, I have to say. Now, obviously, I think freedom to travel is one that was obviously off the cards for a long time. So yeah, that's really funny. And then my long-term vision, I wanted a home office and to be able to spend time with my kids. So I do think that's something that's in my long-term vision important for me, is that I can spend really good quality time with my kids and not have work get in the way of that. I wanted to always have holidays in the calendar, to live in Dublin in sort of an old house with a modern extension, to have invested in properties worldwide. I no longer, I think, want that to be the case, but I'd like to have some sort of holiday home, like an Airbnb maybe at some point. But honestly, I'm not sure if that is necessarily something that I really think about anymore. I wanted to have a happy, healthy family and to be self-employed, and the little thing says Dr. Ciara, entrepreneur. And I can't believe that I wrote entrepreneur there, because I was obviously a lot more like confident about my future self than I would be about my current self. Somebody has referred to me before as an entrepreneur. I think that's something I don't feel comfortable describing myself as, despite the fact that I'm running a business and this YouTube channel and stuff, like obviously very arguably entrepreneurial activities. I wouldn't have described myself as such. I think I wouldn't really change a lot about that, to be honest. I do want to get a bit more specific in terms of what my days look like. And then for me, the other thing that's quite important for me to think about in terms of vision is what I want the business to look like in the future, because that's something that I will always be involved with, I believe. And just to do a bit of vision setting for that. So my ideal day, it would be getting up early, going to the gym, having a healthy breakfast, being one of those people who has their own herbal tea blend and does meditation and journaling every day. And to be honest, this is not dissimilar to the morning routine that I have planned. I just don't always do it. And it's funny that this is exactly what I would love out of a morning routine, would be all of that. And then I was easily able to also do the evening routine, which was cooking, doing yoga, reading, journaling, and quality time with loved ones. And again, that is how I endeavor to spend my evenings, but I don't always do that. It was the actual, work part of the day I found a bit difficult to really say what I want that to look like. I do sort of have a dream that we will have a really cool office space for the drama school at some point, and that I would work there, and that it would be the type of place that I can bring, Lola, our dog, who I can't bring to my current house, that I'd be able to bring her to work and, work away on scaling the business and doing cool things. And I suppose if I've brought together my research and the school, then it means I can do that from there, and that I would also be doing some teaching and spending time with literature during the day. And yeah, I think that's what I want it to look like. I never really wanted to have to go to a workplace, but I do think it'd be very different if it's my own office. However, things are very up in the air at the moment with the future of the school. I can't really talk too much about it, but I do think this vision would have to change potentially, and that is something that I have to keep in mind too. I'm not putting all my eggs in one basket with the school at the moment. Now the trustees own the school, and the changing of the company could mean that there could be some differences in the company structure, which would be very challenging and could very much affect whether I will be doing it in the long run. So I don't want to put all my eggs in one basket at the moment. I just want to try and have a sense of what things could look like. Alternatively, I think it could be, working from home, from a home office, and doing that type of work on recommender systems applications, potentially in a self-employed way, or potentially doing that type of work with the university. I would really like to work as a professor, I'd love to work in a university, but it's so hard to know how these things will go together in the long term. In terms of recreation time, I'd love that to be spent, you know, going on hikes at the weekend, going to different parts of Ireland for weekend getaways, traveling. I definitely think traveling is a huge part of my future, I hope. And even getting to travel for work and, you know, have expenses paid for with that would be great. And being able to travel for free would definitely be a long-term goal for myself. I would love to be able to just have more choice and flexibility in my days. I do think that's something that having two really hardworking parents has made it so that that's something that's really important to me, is to have the flexibility and choice and not be in something full-time that I don't necessarily want to be in. Gosh, that was a heavy video for my brain. I hope that it was helpful. If you're doing these types of exercises, I'd love to hear in the comments what you came up with. And thanks so much for watching. Our next video is going to be the 12-week year process. So basically making plans to get to this long-term goals for our lives, reflecting on the last 12 weeks and then setting new goals for the next 12 weeks. And I think that will be an exciting video as well. Thanks so much for watching. Thanks to all of my wonderful members as always, and I'll see you all in the next video.